What's going on, Steelers Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Texas Steel Podcast. I'm Pierce Trexler, joined always by my cousin, Drake Greenstein, here to delve a little recap to the unfortunate L that we took over in Cleveland. Man, unfortunately, playing road games in Cleveland just seemed to be our kryptonite. But how are you feeling? This one was a gut punch and a half. Obviously, I was pretty down bad come the day of the game. Birthday celebrations just got spoiled, but where was your headspace at then versus now? And tap in.
Well, I'll get in that first. First, for the viewers, it's my boy's birthday.
Hey,
Love you,
let's
brother.
go. 25 trips around the sun.
I wish we
Everyone's
could have got
blessed.
you a win on your birthday party. That was tough, but I have a lot of thoughts. I got my notes over there, so I'm just rattle off the dome. I'm gonna just name off a few things that I'm frustrated about. I like how when you start the podcast, you immediately know we lose by our tone.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, a couple things. First thing that stood out to me that I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. First quarter, bro. I feel
Another no points.
so that
No
we
show.
kicked off. We got a quick 3-and-out. We got the ball. I mean, we were watching the game right off the bat. I thought we were controlling the tone. We moved the ball into the 40, and I mean, what is the lingering woe that we keep on fighting, man? Is just finishing drives, and that's just a continual trend that is just staying with us. Is finishing drives, not turning field goals into touchdowns, and I think that could. I mean, it is biting us in the ass. Second thing is both in two of those drives right off the bat, we got into the Browns territory and Russ just taking sacks.
Too many.
Mobility has been an issue. He's not getting younger. That's a tough thing. I will say, I mean, not all of it's on Russ, but I will say there was clean pockets where I'm like, Russ, you had 4 to 5 seconds. Either get the ball out or
Throw it
get
away
it
at
away
least.
instead
Yeah.
of taking a sack, which I think two of those drives were ended and we were in field goal range. And I'm like, Russ, come on, my man. Um, Not the worst Russ game, but I will say just the mobility's I think is a little bit of an issue. Just hard to get out of the pocket. And then one thing I'm just Pierce. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't understand why the Steelers do not ride the hot hand with running backs. Like
Always
I
just
get
try to
it.
switch it up with personnel.
When
Throw
Warren's
another one
having a
in.
good game, Warren was averaging I mean, you can pull up the stats: 4 to 5 yards a carry. I think he was like 11 carries for 46 yards. And that's almost 4.5 yards, more 4 yards per carry. Najee had 16 carries for almost the same amount. And what I just don't understand is why we continue to be persistent on incorporating Najee. Don't get me wrong. I think Najee has a time and a place to be our premier back, but when Warren is hot, let him ride it. And I felt like Warren was the hot hand. I don't understand why we did do that. And then there's just a myriad of things I'm confused about. I mean, we were getting flooded on our Instagram. I did a poll. I said, Steeler Nation, this is a safe place. Let it all out. And I constantly kept on
People
hearing
were venting.
Tomlin's management of the clock.
Horrible.
Oh my
Horrible.
God! In the fourth quarter, I mean, whether it be accepting the penalty to make it 3rd and 7 instead of 4th and 2, the timeouts and the goal line, just
Horrible.
let Chubb score.
Yes.
I didn't understand that.
And you know he's the defensive coach telling them, like, take him down if you can. I mean, otherwise, a coach, if you're wanting them to punch it in, would be vocal about letting them get in there with the clock that we need.
I'm sorry. We'll go deeper into these issues, but I'm just wanted to just rattle them off real quick. And then on a huge play, we scored the touchdown to go up 1 with the chance to go up 3 off the 2-point conversion.
Cordero Patterson, the only wide
Yeah,
out.
let's just sit there for a second. Cordell Patterson was brought in this team because of the new kickoff rules and to serve as like a gadget guy, not the guy you throw a one-on-one ball to
Must
literally
must have
must have
conversion.
in order to extend the lead to 3. That just did not strike any sense to me. Don't get me started with the officials. I'm not going to be one of the to blame the officials, but
Or
good
the
God.
weather.
Yeah, George, I hated that.
They play in it too, bro.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I mean, there was just so many calls.
Let me get in here.
Yeah,
'cause
go ahead,
I
go
got
ahead.
some things to say as well. I mean, I think we're all kind of on the similar consensus. It's obviously quite the letdown of a game, especially knowing that you have such good opportunity to go in there and really turn this season around. Not turn it around, but just elevate up, chase that number 1 seed. Basically, after this one, I'm kind of kissing the 1 seed in the AFC goodbye. I mean, there's no shot that we can really keep up with the Chiefs. We'll see how it all unfolds, but they're not losing games, and or they're not, yeah, not losing games. Unfortunately, we dropped this one. To your point, I think a big finger and a big telltale for this game. Yes, Tomlin made some boneheaded decisions, in my opinion. Obviously, the timeout early, the not saving, going for it 4 times in a row and not getting a single fourth down conversion. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, Cleveland had got like 6 for 7
Yeah.
fourth down attempts, and whenever I can keep going into it, but
Yeah.
the accepting of the penalty to make it 3rd and 7 as opposed to a fourth
Yeah.
and two.
Yeah.
You know they're going for it every
Yeah.
time on 4th and 2. Tomlin, why are you not out there? I mean, it just definitely some boneheaded decisions. But the number one finger and where I'm pointing is going to be at Arthur Smith because obviously, like you mentioned, a lot of just crazy, ridiculous packages. I mean, we can talk about the overuse, in my opinion, of Justin Fields or the predictability of bringing Justin Fields in there. Every time, aside from one play
Yeah.
where he throws a deep ball to George Pickens, was he in there to run the ball or hand the ball off? Or
Yeah.
not even hand the ball off. I think he ran every play. And on those, we have all these different offensive packages. You could throw a Darnell in there for blocking.
Yeah.
We know how good Jalen Warren and Najee are at run blocking. Why is Connor Hayward lined up as our fullback for blocking? This guy, like, definitely not overlooking the efforts Connor Hayward has done, but when you have other guys on the roster that can better be put in those positions, and then the schemes that we were running on 4th down, not to mention sticking with the hot hand at running back,
Yeah.
and then the 2-point conversion with Patterson as your only guy outside. It
I
just
hated
blows
it.
my mind. And knowing that the conditions are what they were, maybe we're not trying to throw the ball as much. Obviously, I think a lot of it comes down to the offensive play calling because our defense, granted, they didn't have the best game, kind of getting exposed in Swiss cheese. But when you got a team that's backs against the wall, literally, this is their Super Bowl. I mean, you kind of just need to play the elements, play the game. And I thought our defense was doing fine, but they were having to not force a 3-and-out, but force a 4-and-out because
Yeah. Yeah.
Cleveland was going for it literally all the time. So
Well, I just hate when they do those sets. It's a 3 tight end set with Hayward, Muth, and Darnell. And then the only receiver out there is like Scotty Miller.
yeah,
And they got 10
wonder
guys in the
what's
box.
happening.
I
Wonder
just,
what's happening.
I don't, here's, I mean, we also, I mean, we were getting flooded in the Instagram section talking about Arthur Smith, Pierce. So, I mean, you're saying what everyone else is thinking, man.
Yeah.
Tomlin doubled down and said, we're going to win by smash mouth football. And it, to me, this is one of those games that the last episode I said, the reason I'm a little resistant of calling us a Super Bowl contender in some ways is that there's just not a dynamic ability to really just win in different ways offensively. I feel like Tomlin's so stubborn. The offense is stubborn. Like we have to run the ball in 1st and 2nd, and
then
then
try to
incorporate
throw.
play action, sprinkle it in, and we'll get a deep shot in there every once in a while. That's just not how teams win championships. You have to win in different ways, and sometimes you got to say, "We're giving the ball to a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Let's forget about the run for a second. We need to stretch it through the air." And I just forget about the conditions. Jameis Winston was doing fine in the
Yeah,
conditions.
it
He
was-
was throwing dots.
Yeah.
How come our guy can't throw it? But I feel like Russ's leash was a little too tight. Even despite the sacks, I mean, I thought
would
we should have
agree.
threw it a little bit more. Cleveland stacking 10 guys in the box, Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting run. The whole stadium knows we're going to run the ball, and we're like, oh, let's go right up the gut for Najee for one to set up a 3rd and 9.
Yep.
And even in a good offense, even a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow offense, a 3rd and 9 is hard to convert,
Completely.
especially with our offense now.
Oh yeah, it's not necessarily feeling Matt Canada-esque, but definitely pulls signs of this one in particular felt like a Matt Canada game.
Most definitely.
One thing that I was saying was this kind of just felt similar to obviously the Kenny Pickett games just over in Cleveland Thursday night. I mean, we haven't won in Cleveland in so long, but
Yeah.
all of these bad things to say, I mean, we can continue to go on and harp on the bad. I was down bad and like super distraught after this game. I mean, definitely spoiled the evening and even lingering into tomorrow, but I tried to give myself the 24-hour rule of like dwell in it, soak in it, do what you need to.
Yeah.
There is another game that's coming around. Granted, it's not going to be for another 10 days after we had finished this game, but tried to just fully wrap my head around it, and I'm in no way, shape, or form bailing on this team. Like, I definitely still think that we can bounce back, and if anything, I wrote in my notes, it kind of reminds me of the 2020 season. I mean, the Steelers were 5-0, Russ was 4-0 coming into this game, vibes were high. Cleveland, it's a division opponent. The weather, I know we don't want to use it as an excuse, but absolute wrench in the equation.
Yeah.
And then plus a hostile environment in Cleveland. I mean, our record shows for the times we play in Cleveland, not giving Tomlin an excuse, because as an adaptive coach, you need to find ways to win those games that you've frequently had your kryptonite. But I'm not throwing the panic button on this one yet. I'm excited to see how our players are going to respond to it. Obviously, GP had that one interaction with the fan and the cornerback at the last play of the game with the Hail Mary. And when he seemed relatively in control, I mean,
Yeah.
you see just a few plays before that. Was it Denzel Ward or not? He ripped
Yeah,
his
someone grabbed
mouthpiece
his
out of his
mouthpiece.
mouth, and
I
he
said,
just stayed there. And you said being the bigger man, just
yeah.
not like fighting, because Pickens of old would have probably scrapped. Granted, they got to him on the last play of the game, but refs did no favors. There were several PI calls I think could have easily been called on Pickens, but cutting the excuses out.
I think
it's
at a
AFC
certain
North
point,
ball.
the refs just said, we're not going to call anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I mean, you remember that Winston touchdown? NFL Films, I'll clip this because, Pierce, you're going to be shaking your head. NFL Films clipped it, and they're like, look at this cinematic masterpiece of the snow in slow motion. And as Jameis Winston's escaping the pocket, you just see Nick Herbig coming for him and just getting held like literally just across his entire jersey. It's like right in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point, once the snow started coming in the mid the third, like late fourth or early fourth quarter, the refs were just like, we're not going to blow the whistle. They couldn't see anything.
yeah.
They weren't calling anything except Beanie Bishop getting a clean fumble.
That was ridiculous. He was
Yeah.
never touched, got up, was kind of just being lackadaisical. I don't know if whistles were blown. Obviously, we can't hear from the TVs, but if no whistles were blown, Beanie had no other choice than to try to punch that ball out. And the fact that he got penalized for it, and obviously we know that set up the touchdown for him, it was just super unfortunate. So again, I don't think the refs necessarily did us any favors. And y'all keep in mind, 83% of the money was riding the Steelers. Now, I don't like to think Vegas gets involved with certain games like this, but it does leave the door open and up to consideration. I mean, I hate sounding like this sore-ass loser, but there were just so many things that went into just an ugly game from hell, honestly. I mean, it just seemed cursing everything to its extent. But, I mean, okay, continuing just new talking point. I could have sworn I love seeing, no matter how many things that bad had transpired, to be able to go down there with, I think it was 4 minutes left at that point. I mean, you talk about the absolute strike from Russell to Calvin Austin
beautiful.
for that touchdown.
Yeah.
That's what the go-ahead points to, or obviously Boz came in, got the extra point, and took us the lead. But stuff like that, I do like to see this adversity, and the way we just battled in this game for how shitty it was, I think goes to show a lot about this team. Granted, we didn't get the results we were hoping for, and it's tough for our 3 losses of the year to be to below 500 teams in the Cowboys, the Colts, and now here we are with the Browns. But again, it's AFC ball. We've already beaten 5 playoff teams currently as the season stands. And again, one of my points that I was looking to make, this feels very 2020-esque, where we went 11-0 and we were feeling hot and obviously riding that wave. And then the Commanders, we go into town, and they were probably the worst team in the NFL, I think it was. They beat us, and then we know how that season went. It broke us. We had no guidance from there, and it kind of just, we went into shambles. That was when Cleveland beat us at home, I think, that year in the playoff game. So
I don't think this is the straw that breaks the camel back like
No,
2020.
no.
I think this team's a little bit better. What I'm just insane how consistent Tomlin is. Our only 3 losses, Pierce, are to below 500 teams. It's like clockwork. We've won 22 straight Monday night home football games. We've lost now 8 straight away Thursday night football games.
Yep.
I don't understand. Does Tomlin just not get these guys ready on Thursday night?
We did play the Ravens last week, so I try to give grace there. That was a physical one, most definitely. But when you're coming out of a physical game like that, I would think your mental is just even more sharp, especially when Cleveland got blown out to the Saints. So, I mean, maybe the players were just
And let's
overjoyed.
think about that for a second, Pierce. The Saints put up 30 plus points with a Taysom Hill led offense. Mm-hmm. granted, the weather conditions in the second half, that's why I feel like there was so much more to be desired in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we played far too conservative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're looking at the forecast, you should see, okay, snow's coming in the second half. Let's throw in the first
Early,
half
yeah.
so that we can establish a lead, and then
Keep them on their toes. Keep the
let's
game
play
balanced.
smash mouth football in the
Yeah.
second half when they're sitting in the cold ass winter
Mm-hmm.
snow. And I just disappointed by it. Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, I think we do have a major issue though, Pierce. One that is going not as talked about because everyone's talking about the the mismanagement of calls, the play calling from Arthur Smith, but one thing that we have to acknowledge that really is dictating our offense, bro, is this O line. 8 sacks in 2 weeks. 8 sacks in
It's
2 weeks,
tough. It's
Pierce.
tough. But also, to your point, I also
But
think
8 sacks in 2 weeks, we can't convert. What are we like 1 for 7 in our last 4th and 1s? We don't have the confidence our O line to convert a 4th and 1 right now.
I understand, but I also think a lot of those sacks, not trying to defend the O line, but there are oftentimes, to your points earlier, Russ just needs to get the ball out.
That's
You're taking
fair.
5 or 6 seconds back there. He's trying to be Superman at times, and it results in what could be a field goal that keeps us within range at the 40. We're backed up to the 50 because Russ loses 8 on a
Yeah.
sack. So, I mean, definitely this game, not that I was ever questioning, I still think for this season, Russ gives us the best chance, but I was just sitting back there thinking, what if we could just actually open the playbook up for Fields at that point? Like, obviously, he's going to be able to, and if our line truly has the issues that you're alluding to, then maybe we need to start incorporating more packages with Justin that aren't as predictable to continue to open up
Yeah.
our offense because he's getting out of 80% of the sacks
Yeah.
that Russ finds himself in my opinion.
Well, the
For
problems
sure.
I'm seeing is it's the problem that's loomed Russell Wilson his whole career. Being a what is he 5'11", 5'10"?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's hard to
5'10".
see across the middle of the
Justin's
field.
6'2".
Justin
Can't
six
get a
two.
yeah
So, and I think that's
over the
honestly, Pierce.
line.
I think that's playing a factor into why our red zone is so bad
Mm-hmm.
because you think about it. The red zone, you have less grass to work with, so the field is so shortened.
Condensed.
Yeah, it's so condensed, and I think Russ is having a hard time seeing the field because in the red zone, it's just I feel like the only times we ever score in the red zone with Russ is a back shoulder, but that's on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many more different things we can do with Justin. I'm not advocating for the QB switch. I'm just merely pointing out the fact
Absolutely.
that Russ, I mean, the conversion rate is something to be a little concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it feels like we have very little to do with Russ, especially when his speed is not what it once was.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting out of the pocket is not that
To be also
elusive.
fair, though, with the point that you were kind of making as confident shot with the O line, just due to us not trusting them on 4th and 1. I mean, we had 4 opportunities where we went for it on 4th down. And granted, I don't think the playmakers and the players were put in necessarily the best position with the play call from Arthur Smith, but still, I mean, if you go in 0 for 4 on 4th down and most of them well within manageable range, like, how can you build confidence? But he's drawn plays with Justin Fields and Connor Hayward as the lead blocker.
Yeah.
Like, it's just absolutely brain dead.
I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it. Cleveland's getting their 4th and 1s. We're not.
Yeah.
What's the issue? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the trenches. Why are we not winning in the trenches? And I think that's a bigger. I mean, 8 sacks. I mean, Russ definitely can account for a couple, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're not winning the trenches right now, and that's something to be concerned. I mean, even Frazier was getting beat on some moments, which is tough to see. I mean, he's a rookie.
Gotta remember these guys are still rookies though.
Yeah, it's a young
only
O-line.
2 year. I mean, give them a few more years of development, but for them to be able to hand their own. One more thing, I guess we're gonna touch on. We're talking trenches. We're talking O line, D line. Looking at the other side of the ball, man, this is another thing that I get it. We're a defensive minded coach, but why are we not moving TJ Watt around?
Yeah.
You look at Myles Garrett, he's lining up over center, he's lining up on the edge, and no wonder he had a heyday and TJ didn't. He was literally okay, they had a right tackle starting at left tackle, or no, left guard starting at right guard, one of the two. And so it's a guy completely out of position. Yes, it is granted the other side that TJ normally doesn't go on. But you mean to tell me TJ on a guy not experienced in his position can't break through and beat
Yeah.
that side of the line? Why are we so hesitant to make some adjustments with the best player in the NFL? I truly think he's obviously the depoy this year, but I think even MVP candidacy. But if we're just going to keep him on his island where he's getting double teamed and not try to feast on the other side of the ball
Triple.
where they have, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just absolutely ridiculous. But no wonder Miles Garrett had the game he did, because they would move him over center, over a young Zach Frazier, onto the edge where maybe we're getting beat or he has a better chance at a one-on-one. All these situations, yet TJ's feet are planted whatever side of the ball they put him at, and he
Yeah,
doesn't really
Dan Moore
move
wasn't
around.
having a fun day with Miles Garrett. I'll tell you that.
No,
But you're
most
right. I
definitely.
mean, you watched the Browns in their scheme. It was first you have a tight end chip, then you have the tackle give him a little coverage, and then by the third,
Running
it's
back
the
or-
running back
yeah.
coming in to supplement to block.
Yeah.
And that's why you see like Herbig and Highsmith really feasting when, I mean, you're seeing three guys
Yeah.
on any given rush. So you're right. We got to mix it up. We mixed it up briefly at some points against the Cowboys, but I think that needs to
8
happen on
games
more
ago
occasions.
or whatever at this
Because at
point.
the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're Miles Garrett or like, freaking Michael Strahan. If you put three guys, I mean, if you're
You're gonna
passing
contain
1,
it.
2, 3, you're not going to get home. So
And just while on that topic, I mean, I'm just gonna go out and say it. Miles Garrett kind of a bitch if we're keeping it a stack. I mean, if you're truly that guy, you saw, I'm sure at this point most people have seen his post-game presser, but granted, if you're killing it and you had the performance, and obviously it's always TJ, him in contention for Depoy, you can talk your shit, like he obviously had the better game. But for those that know they're him and that actually stand on business, they don't got to come out and say that they're the man. Their business and the way they walk goes enough to prove it. The fact that he said, best player, it runs through me, yada yada. This comparison ain't even a comparison, yada yada, on national television. Like, I'm just sorry to say, like, if you're truly that guy, you don't need to address to the world that you're that guy. And you know how TJ handles everything with humility. I thought it was just a horrible representation. Granted, I'm probably just salty with the loss and the performance and the
Yeah, I feel
unevenness of the battle. But truly, like, if you're that guy, you don't need to address people as saying that you're that guy. I'll leave it at that, just because we'll see how 2 weeks from now looks whenever we get to see them at the crib.
oh, I can't wait.
But
I can't wait for that.
just definitely, I wanted to not let that go overshadow. Jersey Jerry was saying, I hope he tears his ACL, which is absolutely out of pocket. I'm not thinking that. I'm just looking at the morals, the character of the guy, and trying to address what I see. But Jersey Jerry was completely out of
Jerry
pocket
was out
for
of pocket,
that.
yeah. Hope it tears his cell.
Oh. See, I'm glad that we're at least able to laugh. Again, though, I tell you, I was not having no parts of this directly after the game or even into yesterday. This thing affected my mood, and my wife was telling me at like the 4 p.m. mark yesterday, here's why you still like bumming. I was like, 24-hour rule. She's like, it was yesterday. I'm like, I need until 11 p.m. I need to wake up tomorrow, and then I'll be where I need to
Oh,
be.
man.
So we're filming this one on Saturday. Had a few games to level down, so maybe that's why I'm not as intense or as kind of distraught as I
not
was.
as raw.
If you would have caught me after the game, I was down bad, because you posted the stories of us whenever we were coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Action Jackson with the interception. I mean, again, we can go through some player shout-outs if we wanted to. I think it's kind of a waste of time since it's in the rear view at this point. But just, we were so
We're moving
there.
forward. We're moving forward.
Absolutely thought we had it near the end. I mean, defense make a play, but nonetheless, we go down there, we score with 4 minutes to go. Defense comes back out on the field. Cleveland's doing a little bit of things, but then bam, Action Jackson interception. We got like under 3 minutes left on the clock. 2-3 first downs, and
Yeah.
it's ball game. Just go and close the thing, and we can't do that. We sputtered, and then Waitman, love you, brother, have done absolutely nothing but great, incredible holds. Your punts have been great for coming in as Johnson's backup, and obviously the distress that we had there early in the season. But man, the worst punt couldn't have come at a
worst punt of
worse
the season.
time. 10-yard, 15-yarder, whatever it was.
Duck.
And that's one more thing. I'm not a salty loser, but the way we set ourselves up in these positions where Cleveland didn't have to go any more than 50 yards ever to get into the end zone. I feel like they were starting majority of their drives at the 40 or the 50. We did no favors from a special teams perspective, or even just conversions on fourth down and giving them a 30-yard field to go and collect 7
Missed
points.
field goals, missed fourth down conversions. Yeah, I mean,
mean,
Cleveland didn't have to do much.
It's just absolutely tough and gut-wrenching, but that's why it's still a glass half full for me, having a
Wait
day
till
to marinate
December,
off
Pierce.
of
I think
it.
it's going to be a different story at home.
That's what I'm saying, and I just it's
It was a muddied up game we weren't we lost all the timely downs. Like, think about it, all the timely possessions,
Yes.
didn't convert the fourth. Like you said, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. All of their drives were on a short field.
Extremely short field, and I'm
I'm
surprised
licking
they
my
didn't
chops for
have any
December.
more. Yeah, I'm excited to see them here. Obviously, we got the Bengals on the road coming up, so that's going to be two
That's
back-to-back
gonna be a
road
tough
games,
one.
and I mean that's why these were so critical. I was looking at this next 3 game stretch. It was Cleveland, Cincy, Cleveland again, and so we needed to double down. Thankfully, we did enough padding, and we beat the opponent that we absolutely point blank period needed to in the Ravens last week at the crib, because we know going to Baltimore is going to be tough. We won the one we needed to then. Every time we come out and we predict the schedule or the record, we always tend to split the division just out of grace. Granted, we think we're going to do better than that, but when we equate our record down and try to boil it down, we always say 3-3 over the record, even though historically it's proven otherwise. We just give their flowers. So going on the road to Cleveland, losing that one, yes, it sucked. It was a sucker punch from hell, but on to next week. I think we can definitely stand our fair shot. We wanted to collect this one to advance to 9-2. It sounds a whole hell of a lot better than 8-3. But again, the 2020 point that I mentioned earlier, the 2020 Steelers that went in 11-0, they faced adversity and they crumbled in it. I'm excited to see how we turn the
Yeah.
face of adversity moving forward, because we schedule don't get easier. This was probably not the easiest one. I'd say Cleveland at home might be the easiest remaining game on the schedule, but
This
this
was
was
the
one
gimme,
we
bro.
needed to
This
take
this was
advantage
the gimme,
of.
Pierce. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry to call it how it is, but you lost a gimme. You lost to a team that had just lost to the Saints by like 20 plus to Taysom Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it how it is. That was a awful freaking loss.
We
Everyone in the
know.
country saw it.
We know. And it was on national television, so that's only more spotlight for all the other drama with TJ and Miles and just the storylines. You see how the media is starting to shift back. They're already saying we're fraudulent, XYZ. But again, let's see it in December. Let's see it. Obviously, we're going to get into the postseason, so let's just see how we can handle and fend for ourselves then. But it all starts just over, I guess, 8 days at this point. So it sucks that we have to sit and marinate on this one, but hopefully it does our players right. Gives a little mini bye, gets some guys ready to get back from 2 intense AFC North matchups in the Ravens and the Browns. Hopefully they can get healthy again. But anything else you wanted to close out with before we preview for Cincy?
Let's move on to next week. Since he's coming off a bye though too, they're gonna have 2 weeks since they last played football. Not looking forward to that. This is gonna be, their record does not reflect how good they are.
Absolutely not. And we know their defense has some holes, but that offense scores some points. So
Yeah.
I know that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were the leading scoring team coming into the game. We held them down to, what was it, 16 total points, but offense just couldn't come alive and convert in the red zone. So learn from our mistakes, flush this one, have our sights set on a few days from now when we tackle the Bengals on the road. But man, Steelers Nation, we're in unison. This one sucked, was never fun, but keep the chin up. I think our season is far from over. I'm excited to see how we can face this adversity and hopefully bounce back against the Bengals next week. We'll have a preview out for you guys here in a couple of days for that one. Let's look at the AFC games across the board this week and hope for some destruction.
Yeah.
Chiefs got a layup, so they should probably take it. I think they play
Ravens
the
got the Chargers though.
exactly.
That's
So-
not a gimme.
and that's one that I'm hoping for. Just
The Harbaugh.
knock the Ravens continuously down. Hope the Bills can take an L at some point, but Texans too. We'll see. Just keep an eye on the picture as a whole, and we'll see where we can go from there. But sights set on Cincy. You guys have a good one. Keep that chin up. Wave those towels, and here we go, Steelers. Here we go.